For decades, the widespread historical consensus was that Herschel Grynszpan, a Jew whose audacious assassination of a Nazi diplomat was used as an excuse by the Nazis to launch Kristallnacht, a critical early atrocity against Jews in the Third Reich and precursor to the Holocaust, met his end before the cataclysmic close of World War II in 1945. But in 2016, a singularly defiant 1946 photograph, unearthed from the dust-cloaked depths of the Vienna Jewish Museum, rattled the very foundation of historical consensus. But before we unravel this startling discovery, let's plunge into the baffling life of Herschel Grynszpan, one of the most underrated sagas of the Third Reich, replete with bizarre twirls and dizzying loops. Born on March 28, 1921, in Hanover, Grynszpan was the son of Polish Jews, and despite being born in Germany, he never gained citizenship. The escalation of anti-Semitism led Grynszpan to leave Germany. He originally planned to emigrate to British Palestine, but ended up living with his uncle in Paris. His struggles as an illegal immigrant were marked by failed attempts to legalize his French residency and a hand-to-mouth existence mainly supported by his poor uncle. Back in Germany, the Nazis were expelling Polish Jews, leaving 12,000 stranded at the Polish border under dire circumstances, including Grynszpan's parents and sister, who wrote him a heartbreaking postcard detailing their horrific predicament and pleading for help. Enraged by this as well as other persecutions by the Nazis against Jews, Grynszpan decided to take action. On November 6, 1938, after an argument with his uncle, he left with 300 francs, lodged in a cheap hotel, and the next day, purchased a revolver and bullets, wrote a farewell postcard to his parents, and headed to the German embassy. Grynszpan initially aimed to assassinate Johannes von Welczek, the German ambassador to France, but fate had other plans. By identifying himself as a spy with vital information, Grynszpan requested to meet with the highest-ranking diplomat, unaware von Welczek had left for his morning walk. Instead, he was directed to Ernst von Rath's office. Rath asked Grynszpan to hand over the most important document, to which Grynszpan responded by shooting him 5 times, allegedly shouting, "You are a filthy Bosch." In the name of 12,000 persecuted Jews, here is the document, before firing. He readily confessed to his actions, citing revenge for Jewish persecution as his motive. Rath's murder provided the Nazis with a pretext to unleash Kristallnacht, or Night of Broken Glass, a horrifyingly public outbreak of anti-Jewish violence on November 9 to 10, 1938, and a prelude to the Holocaust which began a few years later in 1941. Across Germany, thousands of Jewish establishments were smashed or burned, over 200 synagogues destroyed, more than 30,000 Jews were sent to concentration camps, and at least 90 Jews were killed, though numbers could be much higher. It was conducted primarily by the SA and SS forces but also involved some civilian participation, and most civilians looked on without intervening. It's important to note that the Nazi government had been planning violence against Jews for some time, and Kristallnacht would have happened regardless of whether Grynszpan killed the diplomat. It was just a matter of finding an excuse to launch it, and Grynszpan gave them one. With Rath's death and Kristallnacht, Grynszpan became an international celebrity, penning letters to celebrities and participating in interviews while imprisoned. U.S. journalist Dorothy Thompson strongly supported Grynszpan, raising poignant questions about justice, responsibility, and Nazi hypocrisy. However, some Jewish organizations fiercely condemned Grynszpan's drastic actions, though they still voiced outrage over the unjust reprisals against German Jews. Grynszpan's defense raised significant funds through international appeals, and Thompson encouraged non-Jews to donate, eager to counter Nazi narratives of Jewish conspiracy. Grynszpan's defense, led by Isidor Frankl and another advocate, sought to reframe the assassination as a crime of passion rather than a political crime, frustrating Grynszpan, who fancied himself as a Jewish avenger. A twist in the tale emerged when rumors alleged a possible sexual relationship between Grynszpan and Rath. According to this rumor, Rath was a homosexual and in a sexual relationship with Grynszpan, during which he promised to help him legalize his French residency, but when he reneged, Grynszpan retaliated by shooting him. Historians speculate the rumor originated from Grynszpan's lawyer, Maitre Mauro Giaffri, who aimed to reframe the narrative from political assassination to a crime of passion, potentially prompting a reduced or suspended sentence. From 1938 to 1940, Grynszpan was imprisoned in Paris, during which time his defense sought to delay the trial to depoliticize the case as publicity decreased. When German authorities attempted to extradite Grynszpan to Germany and brand him part of a Jewish conspiracy, French authorities resisted until the German invasion of France in 1940 made extradition possible. Grynszpan was detained in various German prisons and camps during the war, facing charges of high treason, an executable offense under German law. The scheduled 1942 trial was delayed and postponed due to the US's war entry, Germany's Eastern Front setbacks, and concerns about Grynszpan's potential defense claim of a homosexual relationship with Rath. It was not that they believed the claim, but rather feared the exposure of Rath's brother's homosexuality and the implications it might bring. Although there's no evidence of Rath's alleged homosexuality, Rath's brother Gustav was a confirmed homosexual who'd been court-martialed for it. Mauro Giaffri had provided Grynszpan with details of his personal life, which he would reveal in court, embarrassing the Rath family. The case was abandoned after 1942, and Grynszpan's subsequent fate remains a mystery. Grynszpan's lawyer, Serge Wielgucho, claimed he was executed in 1940, while others suggested he died just before war's end, and evidence points to his being alive in 1943 or 1944 at the Gestapo headquarters in Berlin. According to Adolf Eichmann at his 1961 trial, he was ordered to examine Grynszpan in 1943 or 1944, but did not know his fate thereafter. Over the years, various claims have been made by people insisting they knew of Grynszpan's whereabouts, that he had changed his name and started a family, that he ran a petrol station outside Paris, or that he worked in the import-export business. In the 1960s, a German journalist said Grynszpan was willing to return to Germany and reveal the truth if he could be guaranteed immunity from prosecution, a condition rejected by the court as Grynszpan was a murder suspect and would have to be tried accordingly. Meanwhile, ex-Nazi journalist Michael von Soltikow was spreading the claim that Grynszpan was alive in Paris, along with the notion that the assassination was the fallout of a failed homosexual relationship. Soltikow was sued by the Rath family for these claims, and many historians regard him as a conman whose claims were lies. Grynszpan parents, who immigrated to Israel in 1948 after surviving the Holocaust, claimed to not have heard from him since the war and believed he was dead, a claim officially recognized by West Germany in 1960. However, a Guardian article hinted their claim enabled them to receive a pension from the German state, suggesting a possible conflict of interest. But overall, the historical consensus is that Grynszpan did not survive the war. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about the main topic of this video. In December 2016, a photograph discovered in the archives of the Vienna Jewish Museum sparked curiosity. Archivist Christa Prakish and historian Armin Führer, gosh what an unfortunate last name especially for a historian who specializes in Nazi-era history, thought the men in this 1946 photo looked like Grynszpan. A facial recognition test gave a 95% match, the highest possible score, that the man in this photo is Grynszpan. However, the Nazis were known for not sparing prominent prisoners, suggesting, if Grynszpan survived, it was probably because he collaborated with them. If he did survive the war, he could be alive right this very second. Even Führer entertained the idea that Grynszpan could be alive right now living under an assumed name. He was born in 1921, which would make him 102 years old at the time of this video's posting. Although unlikely, there are enough 102-year-olds around for his being alive right now to be within the realm of plausibility. Who knows? At this very moment, he might be watching this video. At the very least, I hope the fact that Grynszpan could be alive today illustrates how one of the darkest chapters in human history was truly not that long ago. While I lean towards believing Grynszpan perished during World War II, there's a chance he might have survived. Although I typically dismiss conspiracy theories, this seems to be one of the more plausible ones. A 1946 post-war photograph that scored a 95% facial recognition match is a strong piece of evidence. However, this does not definitively prove anything. Doppelgangers are common, and this seems especially likely considering the photo was taken at a camp full of Jewish refugees from Grynszpan's general region. However, I think it's very likely Grynszpan was secretly recruited by the Nazis to kill Rath to justify Kristallnacht, which would explain his possible survival after World War II. Still, apart from this photo, there's no evidence of Grynszpan's survival. Until more solid evidence surfaces, Grynszpan's fate remains a mystery. Do you think Grynszpan survived the war? Could he be alive right now? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe for more content like this.